Welcome, everyone. This is Registering Voters in Oregon. We are going to focus tonight on registering new citizens to the United States and the special requirements of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. We always like to start our meetings with a little reflection that'll just get us in the right frame of mind. So first is the vote is precious. It's the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in our democratic society, and we must use it. That is, as you might expect, John Lewis, an American statesman and civil rights activist. And this one, by voting, we add our voice to the chorus that forms opinions and basis for actions, as Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO. So now I'm going to stop really quickly before we dive right into this and ask everyone to mute yourself unless you are speaking, which we invite that during the presentation. If you have something that you want to question, just speak up. All right.
Okay, well, I'll take it from here. We're going to cover tonight who needs to register, filling out a voter registration card, with the questions that we have found that voters frequently ask, how absentee ballots are used in Oregon, organizing a voter registration drive, and then finally the USCIS requirements, which are a little specific, and Mimi's going to go into that.
So first, who needs to register? So, and I put that little re on there because sometimes people are already registered, but they need to do something to update their registration. So we call that re-registering. We're looking for people who've recently turned 18 or will be 18 by election day, voters who may have moved or have changed their name, voters who want to receive their ballot somewhere other than their residence, and also any voters who might have recently been released from incarceration. Now, up until all of those you can do online, and it's really easy, and we help people do that. But there are a couple things that they have to use paper for, and one of them is if you need to change your signature, which happens often with older and younger. So the youngest voters and the oldest voters are the ones who normally need to do that, have that signature change. We've also occasionally run into people who had a broken arm or something and have to sign with their wrong hand. And so we have them fill out a card so they get the signature that will match their ballot. And then finally, of course, new US citizens, which is what we're all about tonight.
Okay, now we're going to turn to the form itself, and we're talking about Form SEL 500 from the Oregon Secretary of State. You can find this form online, but you will have paper ones if you're engaging in a voter registration drive. Or if you come join us in Portland for the naturalization ceremony voter registration, we'll have the forms there for you too. We're going to break this down and take it step by step. What do you use this card for? You use it to register to vote or to update your information. Is somebody moved since they were at the last election and voted? They need to re-register. You need to use a black or a blue pen. This seems pretty straightforward, but you might be surprised the number of people who said, you know, I always write with green or pink ink. Not on this card. Don't do that. You have to make sure, of course, once they've completed the card that they sign the form. As a matter of fact, if, for example, you go to a senior residence and you're registering or re-registering people there, I have had people ask me, hey, can you help me fill out this form? I've got a bad hand or something like that. You can actually do that. The one part of the form you may not fill out is the signature. And the last part of this is mailing or dropping off the form at your county elections office. When we do this at the Portland naturalization ceremonies, we take all of them from the ceremony directly to the Multnomah County Elections Division. And by the way, if you're doing a voter drive and you're registering people in Eugene and you get somebody from Yamhill County filling it out, you can take that form and turn it in Eugene, because all the clerks will send it to the other 35 offices as required. So once we drop this off, or submit or mail the form, the county elections department, after it receives it, will in about 2 weeks send a postcard out basically confirming that they got your registration. How old do you have to be to register? In Oregon, you have to be at least 16. You may not vote until you've reached until you reach the election at which you are 18 or older. So you can pre-register, and a lot of kids like to do that. You're old enough to do that, give it a try. So
Chris,
go
can
ahead.
the other
Yeah.
thing about 16, between 16 and 18, you can't do anything online.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing. If you have to use a card if you're between 16 and 18, I forgot to say that one.
Yeah, right. Mhm. Okay, and then deadline to register to vote is the 21st day before the election. For the fall election, it is October 15, okay? Because the ballots start to be mailed out on October 16th. And you have to be a registered voter if you're intrigued by some proposition that's floating around, a ballot measure to take certain action or to create a certain law. If you want to sign that petition, you have to be a registered voter. Donna Cohen.
Yeah, so if somebody is 17 and they go and they get a license, they're getting registered through automatic voter registration, right?
Yes.
So then that's it. And unless they change something, they never have to go to the, okay.
Right, except they're automatically registered as not a member of a party.
But they can choose a party
They
then.
can they can
want,
choose a party
right.
if they choose to. Most of the time, I mean, almost 100% of the time, young
Right.
16-year-olds getting their driver's license don't choose a party.
Don't you? Right. And if they change, when they do choose a party, they don't have to go back to the office, though. They don't have to, the signature
No,
is still on
but
file.
if they're not 18 yet, they have to do it with paper. Because between 16 and 18, you can't do anything online.
But I mean, if they've gone to get their license, the driver's
Yeah.
license,
Yeah.
then they're registered. So they can change the registration, their affiliation online, though, right? No,
Not between
Not
16 and
before.
18.
Ah, okay, all
So
right.
that was my point. I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
make that clear.
the
Yeah,
okay.
if you're under 18, you are pre-registered to vote, but you are not in the voting system, so there's no online. You can't do anything online until you turn 18.
Got it. Thanks.
But you can do another card. You can fill out a card if you're 17. Fill out a card. Most of the time, what young voters need to do is fix their signature, because the way they sign for their driver's license is usually not the way they're signing when they're 18 years old.
Okay, the other information that the left-hand side of the form has is numbers you can call for information, including in Spanish. There's an information disclosure there that information submitted on the voter reg card is a public record, but information submitted in the Oregon driver's license section is by law held confidential. If you have questions on any of these, you'll find on the other side of this piece of paper the address and the phone numbers for every county clerk in Oregon. So call them up and ask them, they'll tell you what it is. Let's go back to the previous slide for a second. I think, yeah. And then on the lower right here in that big box, you basically have to provide one of three kinds of information. The first is your Oregon driver's license, permit, or ID number, which is usually pretty straightforward. Most people have to dig it out and copy it. They haven't committed it to memory. But the alternative, and the second alternative, is the last 4 digits of your social security number, if you have one. And you just put those 4 digits in there and you're good to go. If you don't have either of those first 2 categories of information, you have a little more painstaking one that's going to have to be done in public. You're going to have to present acceptable identification, such as photo identification, a paycheck stub, a utility bill, a bank statement, a government document, or proof of eligibility under a couple of federal acts, the Uniform and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act, or the Voting Accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act. And that information you're going to provide is listed on the form there. Then we're going to go to the right side of this form. Well, maybe we're going to go to the back side. Okay, here are the clerk's offices, all 36 offices for the 36 counties. If, as a matter of fact, when you're doing this and you're using the Form 500 that has the fold over mail option, what we frequently do, and we use this in Portland at the registrations there, we will circle the Multnomah County or wherever they are, Washington, Clackamas County, we'll circle the address and then also point out that they have to affix a stamp to it. So it takes 2 more steps. And from my way of thinking, the more steps you add to the registration process, the greater the likelihood somebody's not going to bother to do it. So we do, when we're there in Portland, we stress the fact we're going to take these in. If you fill it out right now and complete it, we're going to take it in. It'll be in the hands of the elections official this afternoon. So keep that in mind when you're doing your voter registration drive. Okay, what else now?
Oh,
The top half. Okay. This is
this
you're
is you.
go ahead.
No, this is you.
Okay, good. You start off with 2 qualifying questions. And in my experience in doing this in Portland, people frequently forget to check these 2 boxes. Not frequently, but often enough, because you're going to want to check it over. Are you a citizen of the United States? I've had people who just went through the ceremony and they put no. I said, no, actually you are a citizen. Are you at least 16 years of age? Some people who are not fluent in English read that as saying, are you 16 years of age? Well, no, I'm 32, okay, explain it to them. But there's one more qualification here that is not specific, but you may run into it in a voter registration drive, not necessarily so much in a naturalization ceremony. Have you recently been released from incarceration? Because you can vote in Oregon if you were convicted, but you have not yet been sentenced. There's a certain person in the public sphere who falls into that category. If that person were in Oregon, that person could register to vote. And also if you've been released from incarceration but are on parole. These are laws that have changed relatively recently. The disability for being convicted of a felony was, until the recent years, pretty strong. You couldn't vote. And the third one is if you were released from incarceration but required to wear an ankle bracelet, you can still register to vote. There are a couple of really fine points here. You cannot vote in Oregon if you're currently in an Oregon prison, serving a sentence for a felony conviction in the county jail, even if it's not prison, or you're actively incarcerated for a felony in another state, not Oregon. And the really, really fine points are, what if you were convicted and you're now on a work release program? Can't vote there. And also, if you're no longer in prison, but you're required to reside in a halfway house. I can't say I've ever heard of these things coming up, but if they do, if all else fails, just give a call if they're open to the local elections department. They'll set it straight for you. Okay, now we go to the information, the key information you got to put in here. See the little asterisk there right before required information? All they have to do is give the information where the asterisk appears. The rest is optional. They can do it. They don't have to do it. You have to give the last name. You have to give your first name. And you need to use the name that appears on your legal ID. Don't get cute. Don't say, oh, this is the time for me to try out a new nickname. Don't do that. Keep it straightforward. You have to give your Oregon residence address, including the city and zip code. People frequently will write out the address and then not give the city or the zip code. You cannot give a post office box. This is where you live. In those rare instances where you're registering somebody to vote who's homeless, they can choose an address themselves. For example, in Portland, Central City Concerns, or they could choose Street Roots that publishes a paper. They can choose the Multnomah County Elections Department. They can also put down the address where they have their tent. If they're there at Harvey Milk Street and First Avenue, that would be their address. Normally, it's a street address. It identifies your precinct and tells the election offices which ballot to send you. You may or may not know but some counties have as many as 80 ballots in an election. You also have to put in, of course, your date of birth. And your year of birth needs to be before 2007-8 to register and before 2005-6 to vote in 2024 as of last month. The county of residence is not required. If you do voter registration at a naturalization ceremony, you will find that a number of people read county as country, and they sometimes put in the former country of residence. So take a look at that. And sometimes people don't know, I don't know what county I'm in, you know, they don't know what's in Clackamas County or Washington County or something like that. It's not required. Then the phone number is optional, the email is optional, and those items of information would only be used to contact the voter if there is an irregularity in their ballot. You probably know that if, for example, someone signs a ballot, as people frequently do, and they sign a very informal signature. I worked in the elections department this past election, and I saw some amazing signatures, just wavy lines, you know, things like that. If they can't tell that's your signature, they're going to send you a letter saying, we need you to sign this letter and show that this is actually your signature. So those optional points won't be used. The last line is the mailing address. That's different from the residence address. If it is different, they need to put it in there. For example, if it's a student at a college and the student is a resident at the college but lives somewhere else, either somewhere else in Oregon, and wants to vote at the dorm address, they'll need to put the dorm address down there. Okay, I think Mimi takes it from here.
Yeah, and there's a question in the chat that, or a comment in the chat that says, are you concerned that by taking the voter registration forms, it opens an issue of doubt? One of the things that Chris just said, that they'll send you a letter. Anytime you do anything with your voter registration, they send a postcard right after they do it. So when I'm right after they log in the change. So for example, right before a primary, I always change my party to one of the two to one of the two major parties so that I can vote. And then as soon as the primary is over, I change back to I'm an independent voter. So I just did that, and then this weekend I got a card. It says it showed my party change. So I remind people that if they make a change, that they will get a card. If no matter what they do, they will get a postcard. Watch for it. If you don't get it, call the county office. Then the number is right on that form, or easy to find on the internet, and then ask them if they got your registration change. The other thing people are talking about is mail drops and post office boxes, and they are allowed for mailing, but you can't use it for the Oregon residence address because they may not be in the same precinct as your home. And what they use that second line there for is for determining which ballot to send you. And they don't want to send you the ballot where your post office is. They want to send it where your home is. So it needs to be a residence on that second line, right below the name.
Mimi, there's a question there about clarifying the address for college students.
Yes. So do you want me to answer that one?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So there are a couple different ways that college students can deal with making sure that they get their ballot. And some college students really are really connected to their home county political situation, and so they really want to vote on the same ballot as their family and from their home address. So for example, I did most of my work in Deschutes County and with college students, and we had a lot of students who didn't live in Deschutes County. They might have come from Klamath or Crook or Jefferson County, and they really wanted to vote with their Klamath County ballot. So they put the Klamath County address, their family address, on that second line. But then at the bottom, they can put their mailing address as their school box, their school mail box. And so that way they would get a Klamath County ballot and it would be sent to their school in Deschutes County. They also have the option of voting. A lot of times I ran into lots of students who really didn't get involved in any politics until they went to college. And so now they're in Deschutes County going to school, and they really are more connected. They're working for on political campaigns in Deschutes County, and they'd really rather use the school address for their ballot. And so they can do that so long as it's a mailing address. So they use the school address as the residence, and then that would change. And then when we get to the bottom of this, I'll tell you more about that when we get down to the bottom. Is there anything else on there, Chris, that?
I just want to make a comment. Maybe, I'm not sure if this is Deanie's question, whether she was concerned in a sense about the security of
Mhm.
people taking the completed forms to the elections office.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, unless, you know, something's gonna happen, I think it's a fairly safe process. I will say that speaking only for Multnomah County, they bend over backwards to try to get someone registered. They will give them, in a sense, the benefit of the doubt. They will help in many different ways. For example, through that office and perhaps through the Secretary of State's office, you have more than 20 languages that people can talk to someone to get answers in that language about the registration process. So there are all kinds of different ways. And the question Abigail's got, I'm going to have to take offline to figure out what
Yeah,
the.
I think you're right, Abigail, but I'm not 1000% sure. I think you might be able, if you're homeless, to use a post office address. I've never given that advice to homeless people, and a lot of the voter registration I've done has been outside of libraries, and you do see a lot of homeless people there. So one of the things that we always tell them is usually there are lots of food banks who allow homeless people to use their mailing address, their actual address, physical address, to get a ballot. And there are also some of the like some homeless people can use a relative's address. It just has to be a place where you could get mail, or where you might be able to pick it up. If not, and we can get to this later too, but it's also possible that homeless people can just go into a precinct. So long as they're registered, they can go into an elections office. There are always a couple of booths there, and as long as they can identify themselves, they need to take ID with them. They can get a ballot and vote right there. So they don't have to go somewhere and pick it up in the mail. We're going to talk about this stuff later too.
Yeah, and you all probably know this, but for those diehards among you who really, really, really want to vote in person, you can go into the county clerk's office, okay? And they will make a ballot for you, and you can vote there if you really want to.
Yep, that is going to come up later too. So now I'm going to take over looking at the bottom half. And while I'm doing that, Chris is going to keep an eye on the chat. And Chris, holler at me if you need to cut in. And you guys too, just if you want to turn your mic on and interrupt me, I'm more than happy to do that. I want to make sure we do this, get your questions answered in real time. So now we're going to look at the bottom half. So Chris took us through the top, and that was all the information to identify the person. Now we're going to identify them with their numbers. So first thing we always look for, of course, is an Oregon driver's license. Occasionally you might run into someone who has an out-of-state license. That I happen to say it happens a lot in Deschutes County because people are, live half the year somewhere else, but they still vote in Oregon. And so they have an Arizona license and they just have never changed it because they just, sometimes people have just moved here and they don't have an Oregon license. So in those cases, if it's not an Oregon driver's license, we're going to have them, if they don't have that 7-digit number. Oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you about this too. A valid Oregon driver's license is any or permit or ID, legal ID. Those all count the same, have the same weight. If a license has been suspended, it's still considered valid. If it has been revoked, it's not. So if they volunteer that their license has been revoked, then you need to say, okay, then let's make sure we use your Social Security number in here instead of the license number. One thing I've run into in senior centers, I do a lot of this in senior centers as well, is that they will often have expired driver's license and they don't drive anymore. So what I do is have them do both, because they like to write it down, and usually you'll know because the license itself is punched. It has a little hole in it. And so if I see the little hole when they get their license out, I then say, okay, let's also put in the last 4 of your social security. It doesn't matter if you give them too much information. This is all about connecting the voter registration to the right person. And so this is how they make sure they've got the right person.
One of the ways, let me just comment here. We have, of course, leaguers come in from other places to Oregon, and they've registered elsewhere, and they said, well, what are we going to have to check IDs and stuff like that? I said, not in Oregon. I had somebody come from Illinois, and they said, you know, we have to check these things, and we have forms in double forms. Not in Oregon. You just ask them the number, they fill it in. They don't have to show it to you. They don't have to show you anything at all. Go ahead.
And with all those new hologram things, people have, especially people with vision problems, I'm counting myself, have a hard time reading those numbers. So sometimes I'll say, here, let me read it to you. And I just get my little bifocals in the right place and I read it to them. And that's fine. That's just helping them out a little bit. So then the last possibility that Chris talked a little bit about is that if they don't have either, and of all the voter registration situations I've been in, the only one that this might be possible and has come up is in immigration services, because there are new citizens who don't have a driver's license, and they're also don't yet have a social security number. One of the things they tell them right at the end of the immigration ceremony, of the swearing in ceremony, is here's how you contact the social security office if you haven't already. And some of them have a social security number, and there are a few who don't. I wouldn't say the majority. I would say the majority definitely already have one, because most of them are working and paying taxes. Okay, then let's see. Then that whole long list that's over on it's just to the left of this box is where Chris was showing you when he was showing you the whole inside. That's that whole list right there. And then now the hard part is political party, and hard because we have to sort of hold back and not give them any advice. Sometimes they ask questions. This happens particularly and often with young people. Donna, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify again. So if they have a social security number, they can use the last 4 digits and that's their ID?
If they don't have a driver's license, the last 4 of their social security will ID them.
But that can't be checked if they're only giving partial social security number.
Well, the last 4 digits of our social security number are unique.
Yeah.
I understand that, but that doesn't allow the state to look them up, for example.
I can tell you, having done some of this in the last month, there is a database that has all that information.
They are
checking. That is available to those who are checking the numbers. So I was surprised, but it's all right there.
And the other thing that concerns me about this is how many public utilities use your last 4 digits of your social security number for ID.
I know a lot of times I have to fill it in for things. I can't think of anything right offhand, but it does come up that they only ask for the last 4 for your privacy.
Yes, but I just mean it's out there too much, in my opinion. And so, you know, okay.
This is just a way for them to check and make sure they've got the right John Smith.
Okay.
So if there are multiple people with the same name, they have all these different ways to make sure they've got the right one.
Okay.
And one of them is to have a driver's license. If they don't have a driver's license, they can double check with the social security number. Okay, so we're back to the political party. And one of the kind of interesting things about Oregon, and it's really important when we're registering people for a primary, not as much for the for the general, but these are all the different ways in Oregon that people can be called non-affiliated. All of these party affiliations are called are part of the group of non-affiliated voters. So it's a lot. There's a lot of ways to be non-affiliated. There's only 2 ways to be affiliated, and that's with the Democratic or Republican Party registration. For the general, which from now, well, from the date of the primary forward, we don't have to worry too much about it, but it is good, I think, to do the education that goes along with what does it mean to be in a 2-party closed primary state? What does that mean to me? Particularly with young people, because more than half, I mean, literally the majority of the 18 to 25-year-old voters are non-affiliated. And that makes a huge difference when in the primary, because for example, the last primary, 2022 was the last one I had numbers for. I'll have to go check the 2024. I don't know if they have everything, all the data out yet, but in 2022, which was a big primary because we had a governor's election that was hotly contested, and like 16 people on the Republican ticket and 11 or 12 on the Democrat ticket. I mean, it was a big deal, and you know, the airways were just full of advertisements for all these people running for governor. And in that election, 7% of the 18 to 34-year-old non-affiliated voters turned in a ballot. They just simply recycled it because they got their ballot and there was nothing on it but not uncontested judges, and why bother? So this is why that education is really important, that before a primary, people need to know, go in, and I always tell them, my personal experience is I do it. Before every primary, I go in online, takes like less than a minute, change my party to one of the 2 major, and then after the election, I go back and change back again.
Mimi, I have to slide in a couple of naturalization stories on political party registration. I had one lady from India who listened very carefully as I explained, you know, you don't have to choose a party, but you may. And she sort of poised her pen over the list there, and she said, well, which one would you recommend? And I said, we can't recommend it. And then another lady came from Germany and she said, well, let's see, there are all these parties here. With all these parties here, how much work is it to join a party? And I said, you check a box. She says, it's not very Germanic.
Yeah, doesn't cost anything. That's the other thing. Is sometimes the people who are new citizens will say, well, is it free? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that has come up a couple of times when I've talked to people about parties. The other group that always, I would say just about always has that question is college students. What party should I join? Or what do you think? And we have to really sort of tiptoe around that.
Now we want to, there's a clarification there, Mimi. Whether
Okay.
non-affiliated are those who chose no party, and are you saying some of the non-affiliated includes the smaller
Yes.
party?
I
Okay.
am non-affiliated because I'm an official member of the Independent Party of Oregon. So I am a non-affiliated voter. Every voter who is not registered as a Republican or a Democrat is called non-affiliated, not to be confused with not a member of a party. Because not a member of a party is part of the non-affiliated group. And I have to say it's the largest part by far. Most of the other, independents are maybe 5% of the voters, and the others altogether add up about 2%. So there's not very many of the other than not a member. I'm a wonk. Can you tell? I love numbers. I go in as soon as the election's over, I go into the Secretary of State's office and I dig around in their data. Okay, Lisa, question?
Thank you. So what do you say to people when they ask you which party they should belong to? I mean, you say you can't tell them, of course, but I mean, it feels like that's a Herculean effort for someone brand new to like have to trudge through. What is your answer?
Well, this comes up most with kids, young, like college voters, college age voters. But what I always say is go online. They know how to do this. Google the parties. You've got the whole list there. Go see what they stand for. Look at their websites and then compare their values to your personal values and find the one that fits the best. I have my own story, which is I can't find one that's perfect for me, but I'm pretty good. Like I'm between stuff. So that's why the independent party feels like a good fit for me. But and everybody has the right to choose what they want to choose. But before a primary, I'm pretty adamant that it's okay to be a Pacific Green Party or Working Families Party member. I love that about you. But for just for a little while, go in and change to one of those two so that you can get a real ballot.
Okay.
Okay, Janelle. Oh, Janelle, you're
That-
going to be with us on Wednesday.
Yes, and that pretty much answered my question about how to talk to a person about, if you really want to vote in the November election for a president of the United States, you pretty much need to choose a Democrat or a Republican
Not
party.
for November. I'm really glad you said that. Not for November, only for primaries. In the general election, we all get the same ballot. So
Okay, great.
now we can say it doesn't matter now, but remember that at the next primary, before the primary happens, before the deadline for registering, get into the website and change to one of the two parties. And then just don't forget to go back again so you can go back to what you really feel like you are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It is kind of a little tight wire. You gotta, navigate. All right, everybody okay so far on that? Did I answer Joyce? Did I answer you? Oh, Joyce, hi. Did I answer your question, Joyce? I see that in the chat that you said non-affiliated or those who chose no party.
Right. Yes, you did answer it, but that was so different than what I was told before. So I'll have to readjust.
Yeah,
The non-affiliated were people who had not chosen a party, and the smaller parties, they really had chosen a party, so they are affiliated.
they have chosen a party, but it is not one of the two major parties. So for the purposes of the primary, they are considered non-affiliated.
They won't get a ballot, but I guess and this is probably not necessary to talk about, I have 55,000 non-affiliated voters in Deschutes County.
Mhm.
I believe those 55,000 are people who have not chosen a party.
That for the most part, you are right.
Okay.
Because way the majority of non-affiliated voters have selected or have had selected for them not a member of a party. Remember, the
Right.
DMV automatically selects for every 16-year-old getting their driver's license, not a member of a party.
Right. And the smaller parties don't have enough. There's some kind of a quota.
They're
that
not
you have to
included.
have.
They're not in the primary. They are not included in the primary, so they
Correct.
cannot nominate.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
and so non-affiliated voters in the primary do get a ballot, but it only has nonpartisan
Right.
election, either nonpartisan races and it will have ballot measures.
Okay,
So
yes,
ballot
yes.
measures and judges and Parks and Rec and
Right,
water
okay.
districts.
Then, we've been telling people correctly then. Just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Yeah. So not a member of a party is actually one of the parties you can check. And the others, all of that whole group of other than Democrat and Republican altogether are called non-affiliated for the purposes of the primary. Okay, I know this sounds so crazy. All right, so next thing is the signature. Chris talked about this a little bit too. There's a line that must be where the signature must be. And we are not messing around in the state of Oregon with voter fraud. If you sign this card knowing any part of it to be false, you can be fined up to $125,000 and imprisoned up to 5 years. I always point this out when I'm registering voters because I think it makes, to me, I think it makes them feel more assured that people just aren't going to do this lightly. It's a felony. And so signing this and putting something in here that's fraudulent is going to get you into serious trouble. So I always point that out to people, and then we've got to get the date on there. And then as the voter registration drive person, I have 5 days to get this into the office. It's also true that if they take it to mail it, they have 5 days from that date to get it, to have it, to mail it. So if they're not going, if they're going to take it themselves and put a stamp on it for one reason or another, I just tell them, don't date it until you're getting ready to mail it. That way they don't have to worry about it. And occasionally that will happen. And one of the ways it happens is if they're back up there, they don't have a driver's license number or a social security number, and they have to do that whole, all something from those proof of your address and all that stuff. If they have to do one of those and walk into an elections office to do it, then I tell them you need to sign this and date it when you take it in along with that, and they can do that in front of the clerk.
Mimi, there's a question whether crossouts correcting information on the card are permitted.
They are permitted. And remember, it's going to be a human being that reads this. So make sure it's readable. If it isn't readable, when people have just scribbled and messed it all up, I just say, let's just start over.
Mhm.
And I tear that one in half. And I put it in my recycling and make sure it doesn't get out anywhere. That's another thing we have to be careful about, not, being really, keeping the forms very secure. So now I'm glad Joyce is here because we have this 5-day, okay, I'm going to stop and answer Hannah's question.
Thanks, you unmuted me. I'm thinking about the polarization and difficulties at various voting stations where one party or the other is trying to intimidate. And so I'm wondering if with this situation where we're taking registrations in and then offering to take those to the county office, have you run into any hassling from
No, we haven't. And one of the
about
things,
that?
yeah, one of the things, I'm going to answer this, Kristen. If you have something to add, you add it. But one of the things that makes our situation kind of unique in Oregon is we don't really have polling places unless you call your ballot, drop off ballot
Yeah.
boxes. And so occasionally I have heard of, people who've gone to the ballot box and there was somebody standing across the street looking menacing. But, we haven't had any issues with people trying to, they don't know where we're going to register vote. Especially they don't know about, these kinds of things, the new citizen voter registrations. So it hasn't happened. It's going to be kind of an unusual situation, I think, in Oregon, just because we all vote by mail. What do you have anything to add to that?
Well, can I interrupt for a second? I'm just
Yes.
thinking that here in Oregon, given how, secure the vote by mail thing is, the only way that someone who wanted to could hassle is if they monitored voting registration tables and then, took pictures of the people who were there holding the cards and yada, yada, yada. That's where I think
Yeah, it has never happened. I've never had
Okay,
it happen.
good.
Yeah,
Good.
I've worked in pretty conservative areas and then also in pretty liberal areas, both, downtown Portland and also in Redmond Library and Lapine Library. I've never had anything but people walking by and just saying thank you. So I can appreciate what you're saying because you can see that this might happen, but I have never had it happen.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Are we moving on now? Let's see. Answer a question. Please clarify. Oh, this is Sylvia. If they don't have a driver's license, Social Security, what do they do for ID? Remember that big box that Chris pointed out? I can back up to it. You want me to back up to it? It has this whole list of stuff that actually, oh my gosh, it's way back here. Okay. Valid photo ID. It might be an out-of-state driver's license that they can validate, they can verify. You could have a paycheck stub, utility bills. So these are going to be items that would verify your precinct residence address. any kind of a government document. And then there's also that whole Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. My daughter lives in Norway and she votes under this. And there's also the other measure that's voting accessibility for the Elderly and Handicapped Act. So there are identifications that come with those, proof of eligibility for those. Okay, now I'm going to get back to where I was. Get to watch all my fun things happen here. Okay, yeah, and then the date, and then up to 5 days. Okay, so now I'm going to tell my Deschutes County story, which I had. I'm glad Joyce is here to speak to this if we need her. But they say in the election rules, in the Secretary of State election rules, that you have 5 days from that date to get it into a county office. So I always make, as part of what you plan when you're doing a voter registration drive, is plan how you're going to get them into the office. And so we always think, okay, if our voter registration drive is on a Friday afternoon and we're not going to get done in time to get into the office, then we've got to get them in on Monday. So that's sort of the trick to that. So you got to secure them, lock them up somehow, and then take them in on Monday morning. So, but they do give you 5 days. But there was an incident. Now, Joyce, tell me if I get this wrong, where somebody had done a voter registration drive, and then they either took them in and found a few that got sorted in a different spot, or they found them and they realized that they didn't have them in on time, and they were panicked because there were like 8 or 9 people that probably didn't know they weren't registered to vote, and they had trusted us to do it for them. And so Joyce is nodding her head. Good, I'm getting it right. Okay. And so actually Joyce and I had a conversation about that, and she took those in to the elections office in Deschutes County, and they said, oh, we know it's a rule, but we're not going to keep people from being registered. And they went ahead and did it. So I'm not going to speak for your county office, but they are first and foremost there to register voters. And one of the things I found in even being out and working with people, being out doing a voter registration drive and registering voters, sometimes a question will come up and I don't know the answer. So I call the number, and a person will answer that phone, and those numbers are right on the back of your card. So whatever county you're in, just call that number. I guarantee a person will answer that number, and they will figure out a way to answer your question. I've called even from here when I was thinking about something or a question came up and I didn't know the answer. So I just called them and I gave them the question. I've had them say, let me go research that and I'll call you back. And you know what? They called me back and they did the research and they gave me the answer. I will always sing the praises of our election offices. They are awesome. One of the few government offices that you can count on getting help from. Okay, we're at the very bottom. Sorry, I'm going way on and on and on, not giving Chris enough time. Okay, registration. This last section is only needs to be filled out. For most cases, it'll be blank. But if a person has changed their name, or has changed their address or voted somewhere else in the last election, they need to fill out this last part. If everything else on there is the same as it was the last time they voted, even except for the signature, all of that, everything is fine. You don't have to fill this bottom part out unless the name was changed or the address was changed from the last time they voted. So one of the things that has come up, I'm doing a lot of work with the Q Center in Portland, which is the LGBTQ Community Center. And they do have a lot of people who've changed their names. So it has come up there, trans people almost always change their names. So they need to re-register on a card, get their signature in there with a new name. And then down here they put the last name they voted under. And even if your name didn't change, you still write it again. And people sometimes will say, why do I have to write it again? I already wrote it up at the top. But remember, these are all looked at by a human being, and the person who's going to do the changes only looks at the bottom part of this card. It's like, that's their part. And they just look down. So they look to see what name you last voted under. And then they look up where you voted, because you're going to tell them the address, county and state where you voted. And what they need to do is unregister you before you can be registered in Oregon or in your new precinct. Does that make sense? And then, of course, always you have to put your birth date down there, but that's an ID thing. And they often will say, why do I have to write it again? It's up at the top. But again, this one person is going to look at this bottom. They're going to make sure they ID you at your former voting address and name, and then they're going to unregister you. Hannah.
Thanks. Can I use my son's example here?
Yeah.
It might apply. Okay, so my son is a dual citizen, lives in Canada. He has voted in the Montana elections, national, like the federal elections, because that's where I used to live when I was last in the States. And then now that here I am in Oregon, he can't use the Montana thing anymore. And he wants to vote in the federal elections. Would he just use one of these cards and do the registration update part, or does he have to go through?
That is
That's all he has to do?
Now, I can mirror that. My daughter lives in Norway. I think I told you this, and she votes using my Portland address.
Okay, well, this is good news.
Yeah,
So
so-
if I take one of these cards to him when I see him this next month and come back with it, or get it to the Benton County right away within the 5 days, that would be enough.
So are you going to Canada to see him?
I'm going up there to see him next week.
Okay, and you'll be able to get it back within 5 days.
Yep.
Yeah, I have that problem with Lauren and with my daughter, but because we can't do anything in 5 days. Mail doesn't work. They have that whole overseas citizen program that's what she votes through. And there's a federal form that she fills out, and she does all of her voting electronically.
That's how we used to do it, but so you don't have to do that. Nobody else is in this situation besides me and you
No,
probably.
but
So
it is
maybe
interesting.
At the end, if you would take me through that in more detail.
Okay, we'll talk
We
about
can
it.
move on to other stuff now.
Okay, all right.
Thank
So
you.
really quickly, we're going to run through some frequently asked questions. Just in all the years I've been doing this and all the different situations, I sort of gathered and collected all the sometimes crazy questions I've gotten, but frequently asked. So why do I need to update my signature? This comes up with very young voters and very old voters. Most of the time it's because their signature no longer looks like it did when they were first registered. And for 18-year-olds, often the way they signed on that little plastic thing with this plastic stylus when they got their driver's license, it doesn't look like their signature anymore. Young people's signatures morph more than, faster than anything. So usually they need to update their signature, and also older people, because just of mobility and motor issues, their hands sometimes are shaky and weaker, and their just signature doesn't look the same as it used to. And I have to say, I did some volunteer work in Deschutes County with people whose signatures didn't match, and called them to tell them they had to go into the county office to what they call cure your signature if the signature on the ballot envelope didn't match what they have. And all of them, I am not kidding you, all of them were under 20 or over 70. So I asked, how old are you? Anyway, because I was interested in that. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, why do they need my phone and email? We talked about that a little bit. Not required at all, completely optional. But I always say, if you don't mind sharing it, the only reason they would use it is if there was some issue with your ballot and they needed to contact you. And it has happened. I love the county elections officer in Deschutes County. He's the best guy ever. And he was telling us about, they would get a ballot in that was completely chewed up, it looked like it'd been through a garbage disposal. And they had no idea why, but they could not read anything but the name on the outside of the ballot. So they were able to call the person and tell them they needed to come in and vote again. So those kinds of things happen occasionally, not on a regular basis, but every once in a while. And then, oh, I love this one. If I register to vote, do I have to do jury duty? This comes up more often than you know. And I have always been able to say, you know what? I've been a voter for over 50 years and I've only been called for jury duty once. And if you can't do it once every 50 years, then you don't deserve to be a voter. Sorry. And then I now have to say, I just got called for jury duty. So now I'm on my second time in 50 years. So, okay, twice in 50 years. How do I decide which party to join, and does it really matter? We've talked about that at length. What if I don't want to vote by mail? Oh boy, this comes up too, because people say voting by mail is fraud. It's just fraud. There's so much fraud. And so I say, you know what? Totally your choice. And it's totally my choice. I'm going to choose to vote by mail no matter what. But if you don't want to, you can go into an elections office anytime between getting your ballot and election day, and you can say, I want to vote here. And you can take your ballot in, and they always have a couple of little voter booths in there. You can go take your ballot and vote in the booth and then go hand it in. And so you always have that option. We are a state of choice. What if my ballot's lost or damaged, or if I make a mistake, can I still vote? This has happened too, where people just got off the line and they marked up all these bubbles and they went, oh my God, everything is wrong and X. And it is okay to XX. It will cause your ballot to get spit out on the first read. They first run it through it'll spit the ballot out if it's got extra marks. So that means it'll be hand or human-eyed to look at it to see if they can figure out who you expected to vote for. Now, Chris, if you are doing your election day work, and you saw a ballot like that, it would probably get kicked out to you or somebody like you, right?
Could be, yes.
And then would they call this person? But because the information I have had is that they just send a postcard.
No, what we were trained to do is we have to ascertain the intent of the voter if we possibly can. But
Yeah.
otherwise it will be bounced back to that, so.
And then I think what they do then is they send a postcard to the voter that says your ballot, you need to come in and cure your ballot. You need to come in because we were unable to discern the intent of the voter. That's exactly the words they use. Okay, what if I've been convicted of a felony? We talked about that. How often am I allowed? Oh, this is a good one. You can change your voter registration as many times as you want. You can change it every month if you want to, every week if you want to. The last one in is the one that is the one that they look at. But Chris informed me that they still have all the old ones. Is that true? So they can still, the people who are actually examining your ballot can actually look back. So if your signature doesn't match, they can look back at the one before or the one before that, and they can check it against previous signatures. But just know that if you change your name or you're updating your signature, the last one in is the first thing they use. Can I vote if I'm homeless? We've talked about that. Are there any other questions about that one? Okay, and what if I'm away from home during election? This happens a lot of times in Deschutes County. I'm sorry I talk a lot about Deschutes County, but I lived there for 20 years. If you're away from home, a lot of people who are snowbirds, they live in Oregon half the year, Arizona half the year, or California half the year, and they get to decide which state they vote in. They can't vote in both, obviously, but they can vote in one or the other. And sometimes they want to be Oregon voters, so they have their ballot sent to them. Like they can either use actually, probably for somebody who's a snowbird, the best thing to do would probably be to use the little, what am I trying to say, Chris? Absentee ballot.
Yeah. Right.
I love it when I forget a word and then it comes back. Okay. Now, here you go, Chris.
Okay, a quick question here. If I move to another apartment, do I have to update my registration? I would do so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It's the same complex, but If it's a different number, you know, you
Yeah,
want to,
because this is one of the laws about ballots is they can't be forwarded.
yeah, right.
So
right.
legally, the postman cannot put it in a different box, even if he knows.
Yeah. Well, we've taken up an hour of your time, so I'm going to slip through this pretty quickly. If for absentee voting in Oregon, it's form SEL 111. You can find that on the Secretary of State site, but on the next slide, we have an example of it here. You use it for if you're in the armed forces, the merchant marine, temporary living outside the territorial limits of the US. And the reasons you might use an absentee ballot in Oregon, you'll be on vacation during the election, you're a college student living away from home, you live part of the year elsewhere, snowbird, or you're temporarily displaced as part of a natural disaster. The form itself is very similar to the one you've already seen us do. The two major differences are in the center on the other side, you have to pick the location where you want the ballot sent to. Do you want it sent to a particular address? That's the second one. Or are you going to pick it up yourself in person? That's the first one. This is me. If you're going to do a voter registration drive, something outside the naturalization, have your supplies ready, clipboards, black or blue pens, voter registration cards. You can't do it without that. You're going to need other things too. If it's a good voter registration form, I mean, a good registration drive, what else do we need, Mimi?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm answering. I'm talking in.
Okay, work with at least one other person, just for safety, convenience, and efficiency. It's easy to talk to people. Would you like to register to vote so you can vote the next election? That gets the conversation started. The major thing you want to find out is, do you live in Oregon? If they don't live in Oregon, you know, you're not going to register them. Have a connected device with you so you can check with the Secretary of State's office. And it's always better if you can to use the voter's device. And have the QR codes that access the Secretary of State's office right away, or website information available for voters to check their registration. They will be impressed when if you do it using their machine or their device and say, is this your registration? Is this your address? Yeah, you know, and is that the party you wanted to be? Yeah, okay. Keep track of the completed voter registration card and have a plan for delivering them to the elections office. My recommendation, do it as soon as you possibly can. Don't put them around, leave them at home or something like that. Okay. And this is our QR code for the Oregon Secretary of State. You should have that if you're doing a voter registration drive. People say, oh, I can register myself online. Click, okay? You can do it that way. Next slide's all yours, and I think we're almost home.
Okay,
I have one question.
Yes, Janelle.
Okay, you said to have a device with you. What
Your
was
phone,
that?
a phone or an iPad.
Oh,
Sorry,
And the reason why we say use theirs if you can, if they have it with them, is because then the search history is on their device. And then if they need to, you know, replicate that or go back and look again, they can at least go back and see what they're. Yeah,
okay,
so
great.
that's why it's always the best idea to use theirs if you can. I mean, a lot of times working in senior living places, the people will come up and I'll say, do you have your phone with you? And they take it out and it's a little flip.
Yeah.
There are a couple of
Here,
questions.
you can use mine.
There are a couple of questions here.
Okay.
If we signed up to help you, will we have the supplies available?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're with us, you have it. If you are going to plan your own, like if you're doing your own in your local area, go to your elections office and they will give you a pack of 100 voter forms. And you can also get several other languages. We usually have a few in Spanish with us, especially for the immigration services registrations. But we have a big pack of the, and the other thing we found in the last couple USCIS registration, in the last couple of USCIS events, they handed out a voter registration card to every person when they checked in. And they didn't always do that, but in the last few, they've done that. So every single person already had the card. So then when they walked out, we said, is there any way we can help you make sure you get registered to vote. And they were more than happy, most of them, to have some help.
And if you want to do naturalization ceremonies, they are almost entirely done in Portland twice a month on consecutive days, usually they're done on Thursdays and Fridays, usually about the third Thursday and Friday. They do some in Eugene and in other locations, but we only find out from the USCIS when they announce it. The only ones right now that are outside the federal courthouse in Portland, there's going to be one on Wednesday in Port Clatsop in Astoria. There's going to be one in Eugene in November. Those are the only ones I know of right now that are outside the courthouse. So come on up to Portland.
And they're super fun. Just contact Chris. He's the one that is sort of organizing all this. And by the way, this was not a little deal to get the League of Women Voters approved by the Immigration Services to do this for them, because they don't just let anybody go do this. We're a trusted partner, and it took a little bit of work on Chris's part to get us to that point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chris. All right, so there's some things, now we get to the meat here. These are the specific things to the USCIS trainings that they're different from just all the others. Now, everything you've heard up to now will work for any voter registration drive that you decide to do, but there's some special rules that USCIS has. They're not always exclusive, because this first one, for example, is important for all drives, but make sure you safeguard all that personal information that we're collecting from the new citizens, that you have a special place to keep it, that it's safe and secure, and that you keep it safe and secure until it's in the hands of the election office. Following the schedule, and we've got to follow the logistics requirement that the leadership, the people that are running the event, lay out. And in the last few, we've had some of the people are the same as the other ones, so we've seen kind of the same faces at the last few, so we recognize them, they recognize us. Make sure that you have been trained properly on how to register voters to make sure we don't make any mistakes in this. There's whoever is there first, or the person who's the lead for the group, will get there first, and then go make sure we check in with the field leadership to make sure that they know who we are, and they know that we're there and we're ready, and that we make sure that if there's anything particular to this specific facility that we need to know, we ask about that. And then always wear professional attire. I'm thinking of wearing red, white, and blue on Wednesday. I don't know though. What do you think, Chris? Professional attire, represent yourself and your organization professionally, and make sure you wear name tags that identify you as League of Women Voters. And one of the things they ask is that there's no other identification for the organization, so that there's no confusion among the new citizens about who is running this.
Yeah, for example, obviously the league sometimes endorses ballot propositions. We can't say anything about that. It's simply what our organization is, and that's all.
Yep. All right, the trained members are authorized to provide. So we're going to talk about what we're authorized to do, and then the next slide is what we're not authorized to do. So first, we're authorized to provide voter registration forms. So we will bring them. Like I said, the last time I think the last two times I was in them, I haven't done all of them, but the last two I was in, they actually handed them out to every single person as they checked them in. But also, one of the things to remember about these events is a lot of times the family members will also register or update. So it's not always just the new citizens. Sometimes there will be a young relative that decides they want to also do their registration, or even a spouse or somebody else. So assistance in completing the forms is absolutely allowed, as long as we make sure they do their own signature. We need to review the form and make sure they got everything checked and everything filled in that needs to be filled in. We are authorized to collect the forms and submit them to the local election office. And then we are also authorized to provide nonpartisan educational information on the voting process. So we can talk to them about things like, remember that for a primary election, you need to be one of those two parties in order to get a ballot that has partisan election on it. So that kind of thing we can say, but we can't talk to them about positions or ballot measures or any of that sort of stuff, anything other than just the voting process. Does that make sense? And are you agreeing with me, Chris? I'm
Yes,
seeing a perplexed look on your face. Okay. These are the things we cannot do. Is this you or me? Oh, this is me.
that's you.
I think I took more than my fair share. The League of Women Voters must not attempt to influence or interfere with a person's right to register to vote. Engage in religious or commercial solicitation of any kind. I can't imagine that, but discriminate on the basis of sex, race, color, gender, religion, age, sexual orientation, national or ethnic origin, disability, marital status, or veteran status. Collect or retain or share the personal information of those registered to vote, even if it's volunteered by the voter. Use the personal information for any other purpose than voter registration. And finally, after alter any completed registration form. Oh, I had this happen. The last one Chris and I did together, and I handed him a form that I just had finished, and he looked and he said, she didn't check. What was it, Chris? That she's over 16. And I went, she was. And he goes, you can't fix it. So I ran and I caught her. And I said, check this box.
You have to do this with Mimi. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It is fun.
A
Okay.
question from
Have
Lisa.
we answered all the questions?
There's one from Lisa
Lisa, where are you?
with the hand. with the
Oh, hand up. Hi, Lisa. I was looking in the chat.
Sorry, just real quick. Do we need to somehow, all of us on this call, prove that we attended this so that we know that we've learned what we need to learn?
No, I'm going to take our picture right now. Can I turn off the slides? Would anybody? I can turn off the slides now, right? Because I'm going to take our little picture right now, and I think, oh, some of us are gone, but most of us are here. So, and even though some of you have your screen off, your picture off, you still have your name. Who's Oak Ridge?
Who knows who Oak Ridge is? I know Jenny.
Linda Kammerer.
Yeah.
Okay, Linda, I have to remember that now. Is it C-A-K-A?
It is Kammerrer.
E-R-R-E-R. Okay, good enough. I just put it in the chat and I'll keep the chat. Okay, and I see Lisa only says, Sarah says Zoom user, but I can see you, so I know it's you. All right, everybody feel like you've got it figured out? Ready to go?
Yeah.
I'm excited we're meeting Janelle and let's see who else is here that's going to meet us on Wednesday. We're going to Astoria on Wednesday and we're going to have fun there. Lynn lives in Astoria. Welcome, Lynn. And Lynn is the League of Women Voters member at state because there's no league there, but she's joined the league and we're so excited to have a member in Astoria. Sarah.
I saw that there was a question in the chat, I believe from Abigail Bach, about where to find all of the dates and an easy reference for when you're having them. Did you clarify that? Because I missed that part.
Chris has them.
I can clarify it. It's real easy. They're all in Portland except for Wednesday in Astoria and in November in Eugene. At the moment, those are the only offsite ones that are being done.
There was
Okay.
a Eugene one earlier too, wasn't there?
Yes,
But
there
is
was.
there I guess what I'm asking, is there a drive that we could go to at any time to see the locations and times that's regularly updated?
You know what? Chris has that and he updates it often because there are little changes here and there.
Yeah,
So
I'm hoping to put that information online, Sarah. So
Sarah, does voter service, state voter service do you have your own folder or drive somewhere that we can just drop it in?
I do. There is a voter service drive that it could be dropped into.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
So I'm putting you and Chris. Chris, you know Sarah, right?
I do.
Okay, so Chris and Sarah, you guys figure this out.
Will do.
Okay, awesome. We'll do.
Cool.
Did you get your
And then
picture?
we can let everybody know.
Did you get your picture, Mimi?
I did.
Okay, very good. All right, good. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Let us know if you have any questions. We're
I
easy to
do.
find.
Wednesday.
Okay, yay.
This is Hannah. So can I just hang on
Yes,
for a minute
yeah.
and ask
Oh,
more
Han,
about
and I was
the?
calling you Hannah. Sorry, excuse my ignorance.
That's okay. That's okay. So please review with me how your daughter is doing her voting, because actually I have two sons who live in different countries. And
Isn't
they're
that
both
the way it is?
interested in
That
voting.
generation are not tied to anywhere. I love that about them.
And they want to vote because they have US citizenship and they feel a responsibility. So I need to sort this out for them so I give them the right information. So how they
So
can
I probably
register.
should, Lauren votes through the overseas citizen, whatever, voting, whatever. That's my daughter, and she's actually a citizen of Norway. So she's a dual citizen, but she
Yeah.
votes and votes in the Multnomah County, city of Portland, using my home address. And she uses
So
some federal form. There's a federal form that they use to log in, and then her voting is completely online.
I need to know what that site is. My older son in Denmark has managed to find it, I think, but my younger son has run into trouble because of this switchover from the Montana address to the Oregon address.
Yeah, I wonder if I think he should just fill out a regular voter registration card. Now he's living in Canada. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
And there might be a difference between Europe and Scandinavian countries and Canada, just because they're on our continent. I don't know that for sure. It just feels like it might be. But if you look at that, let me show you this slide again. This is the slide Chris did. This is the slide that Chris did about the absentee ballot. And see that red box right there?
Mhm.
I think she uses that fbap.gov/Oregon, an absentee ballot request form. I'm not 100% sure. I will ask her. Do you, can I just give you my email address and we can
Yes, thank you.
chat about this? Because I can
Yeah.
ask her. I just know she votes online. She has to fill out some kind of a form. She doesn't get a paper ballot. It's all electronic.
Okay.
But it might be easier for your Canadian son, because I think you can just fill out a regular voter registration card and have him sign it and take it into the or mail it.
We could do that. The hang up for him is that mail between Canada and the US is very slow.
Well, then if you
So-
said you're going to be up there though, right?
Yes, but I can, so the voter registration part we can handle.
You can
but
carry it.
ballots may be difficult because of how slow the mail is between the two countries.
Well, I would say, yeah, that's the problem. I maybe have him do the same system, then he can vote he can vote electronically then.
Okay,
I would
so
think
I'll
it'd be worth a
give me
try.
yeah, so let's exchange email addresses, and if you.
Okay, mine is easy.
Find
It's
it.
just mimi.alkire@gmail.com.
M-I-M-I?
Can you see my picture?
I
It's
can see your picture.
and see at the bottom my name.
You could put the email
Oh.
in the chat.
And I can also put email in chat. Good idea.
So it's ALKIRE.
Hannah, she could put her email in the chat and you could put yours there too.
Okay,
Oh,
so there's
you know,
mine.
Okay, hang on.
And then I'm also let you know I'll tell you how you can save the chat so you don't have to.
Thank you, because I've never learned how to save the chat.
It's actually
This is
pretty
an
easy.
issue for me.
Everything's easy once you know how.
That's right, exactly. Beforehand, it's very difficult.
Yeah, before you know how, it's almost impossible. And it's Han. I'm sorry I said your name wrong. I hate that when people
That's
do.
okay, and it's actually a Norwegian name, believe it or not.
It
Oh.
actually, I was going to say it looks Norwegian. My daughter has been in Norway for 10 years.
Oh, does she like it there?
She does, but she's coming home. She's coming back next year.
Oh,
She's going to keep her citizenship, but she's going to come back at least for a while.
wow. Okay, that's a big decision.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got yours.
And you see the little
Mine.
see the little three dots? If you open the chat and then up at the very top, it says USCIS voter registration training. Right next to it, there's three little dots. And I have to say, sometimes the three little dots are at the bottom of the chat.
Okay,
Right
well,
now,
I found the three dots, so what?
okay,
what
click on the
heading
three
do I want?
dots. And click on the three dots, and one of your options is save the chat.
Yep,
You got it. So
Yep.
when I end this meeting, for me, it just pops into my desktop Finder. So I click on Finder and it's just sitting on my desktop in a folder that's the title of the folder is the date and time that I saved it.
Huh.
So
Okay,
it
I
won't
have
happen. It won't
never
happen until I
seen that.
end the meeting.
okay. Okay. Okay, but I have your email here, so that's good.
Okay, so, and you can email me and I need to talk to Lauren anyway. We can only have a couple times a day we can talk and it's going to be late in a couple hours.
I know about that.
I
Yeah,
know.
okay.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you
thank
so
you
much
very
for
much.
coming.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you both.
Sure.
Mm.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
All right. Did you think
it-
that went okay?
Hey, we had 25 people. I predicted.
And it was 28 at one point.
Was it up to 28?
I know we missed a couple at the end that left early, but that's
Okay.
okay.
We
And
had.
we did it, and we started at about 7:10.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we did it in an hour and 15. And that counted talking to Han. So
Yeah, yeah. That was interesting. No, it was good and they seemed to be engaged. And thank you very much for doing all the slides, and all the animation. So
it worked pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
I've done this so many times though that it's like I could do it in my
yeah,
sleep.
it's fun. Good. Now you don't have to do as many times. You can just say, have you seen the movie?
Yeah. Go watch the movie.
That's right.
I forgot to stop recording. Oh, boy,
I should have told you to do that.
it's okay.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure you,
I know how to,